22 years is a long time between fixtures with the same team. But finally, on August the 17th, battle resumes with Liverpool. For those of us old enough to remember battles with Liverpool anyway, join us as we plan the next 9 months of our lives here on the Blue Monday podcast. Hello and welcome to the Blue Monday podcast discussing the town up or down since 2015. Welcome to a live reaction show on Premier League fixture release day, a moment in our calendars that has been entirely irrelevant for far too long, including on this podcast. But now we get to talk about it. In fact, we get to talk about it twice. I'm Rich Woodwards, and joining me here live on YouTube, or for our friends watching or listening back on demand on podcast afterwards, Joe Fairs, Craig Fimbo. Gentlemen, I'll start with Craig. Twitter, there's leaks all over Twitter, isn't there, these days? But we started getting hints towards 9 a.m. that it might be a pretty fearsome start. I think we maybe knew one of them, but two of them, we obviously got Dave and Mikey's immediate reaction at 9 a.m. But what was your immediate reaction at 9 a.m.? And remember that we'd quite like to keep the swearing till after 50 minutes, if that's all right, because it affects the monetization otherwise.
Yeah, welcome to the Premier League was my initial reaction. As you say, Rich, there was a rumor that it was going to be from quite a few different places that it was going to be Liverpool at home. So it seemed that was very, very likely to be the case. And then there was whispers about who was going to be the last game of the season as well. But no, we had no idea that the second game of the season was going to be away at a rainy Manchester in the middle of August. So I'd imagine, as there's been a few messages in the chat at the moment, that time of year, people's summer holidays are booked, aren't they? Certainly for people who've got kids and need to take their holidays in August. And I think I have successfully negotiated the first game of the season by shifting our holiday by 2 days from a Sunday to a Friday. So I might have got away with that one. But I think there'll be a lot of people who haven't been quite as successful who are going to potentially miss a couple of stonking games at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, Rodders here. Gambled with the family holiday and lost 2 home games. We feel your pain, Rodders. We'll talk beyond August if it makes you feel any better, but there'll be a lot of people in a similar situation. Joe, all of us three remember playing Liverpool. Not particularly good experiences of playing Liverpool at home. Certainly the last time I remember. And Man City away, we haven't played obviously at the Etihad. Your recollections of Liverpool and Man City games from yesteryear?
Man City games were sort of good memories, weren't they? Because I remember relegating them at Portman Road, and that's probably almost the last time we've played them. Have we played them since then, other than the FA Cup game on a Sunday night, wasn't it? Yeah, where they sort of got their revenge on us that day. But no, Liverpool, just a massive game, isn't it? There, and I wonder how long into the season Kieran McKenna's record of never losing back-to-back games lasts.
Yeah, well, so I've got the fixture list, and I've done some assessment. It won't be nearly sophisticated enough for a good chunk of our audience, but hopefully it does the job and assesses the difficulty of the fixtures on the basis of where they finished, or where they placed in the home and away league tables. I was at least had the time to do that, and there are lots of red dots, big six, and particularly chunky bits of the season. So we are here essentially to navigate through the 9 months of the season and try to figure out where the opportunities are to make some hay, where we might need to grin and bear it, to Joe's point as well, and get the guys' sense of possible points tallies. Very keen to get your thoughts in the chat as well. And any thoughts on Liverpool, Man City, keep those coming. And any points predictions at this early stage as well. Let's say hello to the chat, even to Tony, whose immediate reaction and a great photo there resplendent on his Blue Monday sweatshirt. This is all rather exciting. It is rather exciting, isn't it? It's all very real as well at the moment, and I think that's what the guys were saying. Mark Ashton, Kieran McKenna on Sky as well. It's all very real, and all these jobs need to be done very quickly, don't they? Here's Darren. Have put all the big games in the family calendar. I mean, they're all big games, as you say, Darren. Wife is not impressed. Yeah, I mean, yeah,
I think my wife, just to Darren's point there, my wife was certainly not impressed, whereby we know the weekend, but we might not know whether it's the Friday, the Saturday, the Sunday, or the Monday until a few weeks beforehand, or a month or so beforehand.
But there's some great places for some lovely weekend trips. There's some October is particularly good if you want to go a bit of early Christmas shopping in London, for example. More on that later. Martin, another one missing out on the fixtures. He's missing out. Liverpool. Chris, other end of the spectrum. I want to go to every game. Good luck with that, Chris. Get the membership points at the ready. Ashley, yeah, repeating what we're saying now feels real. What a first 2 set of games. Exactly right. Here we go, Matt. Joe, 6 points for the first couple of games. He's asking you there, Joe, prediction?
I don't think we'll lose both the first 2 games. I think we'll get something from them, but it's just going to be very, very tough. But it's probably as good a time as any to play both of them, isn't it? Liverpool, in that they're going to have a new manager, first game this way, 12:30 kickoff, which is always more difficult to travel to. Players away at the Copa America, Euros, short pre-seasons, long tours still fitted in, Olympics, they might be losing players to. So I think, like I say, we've got Man City in August and we've got them again in January. Well, they're probably the best time to play them because from March onwards, they win every single game. Maybe February onwards, they win every single game. So we've got them twice in the period where they don't win every single game. So we just do our best.
Yeah, a few people making a similar point, Joe, about availability of players. It's ironic, isn't it? Jurgen Klopp, well, Alanis Morissette, ironic, I guess. It's coincidental that Jurgen Klopp bitches about the 12:30 games and Liverpool's first game of the season is a 12:30, but he doesn't have to deal with it, nor does he have to deal with the kind folks at TNT Sports. Evening, Jules, bring on the scouts, as he says. Matt, shouting out the graphics. We appreciate that, Matt. Big shout out to Marcus Parrott. Our new logo in the top left-hand corner, you can see that there. And above us there, Marcus's hard work. And then I've put some stuff around it to make it work in our podcast. So do keep the feedback coming on that, hopefully positive as well. And new merch coming soon as well. So thank you to Marcus and thank you to Matt for the kind words as well. AD, good evening to you. Norman, top of the Premier League after 2 games. I think that's a question rather than a statement. Stranger things have happened, isn't it? You know, that happened in the Championship after a promotion, didn't it? So, yeah, and as Rodder says, imagine the scenes getting the same return as last season from the first 3 games. Let's get into it, shall we, chaps? Lots of good stuff in the chat. We'll dip in and out of that throughout, folks, so keep your thoughts coming there. Let me just show the working on the difficulty rating that I've provided for everyone. So sorry to Craig, whose face I'm covering up. I can swap them around if you want, Craig. You'd be making gestures there he is. You can still sign him. So home record versus away record there. Not a huge amount of differentiation there. Craig's looking a bit skeptical about that. But that is essentially the judgment here, and obviously reverse it because it'll be the record playing us, won't it? But I've kind of got red for danger, amber for you never know, green for should be maybe looking for a win, and then the dark green is the fellow promoted teams. For folk on podcast, we'll talk through this as we go through, but you know, no surprises really who's making up the top 4 or 5 there, but we'll call that out as we go through. So let's start with August. We've mentioned 2/3 of that already: Liverpool, Man City, and then Fulham at home after that. Craig, what's your take on Fulham? Obviously recent history with them in the Carabao Cup last season. Probably I was a bit surprised maybe at the level, and I guess that was a nice eye-opener for us, but you know, a solid, well-established now Premier League team, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. But as your graph attested to, their away form isn't probably as good as their home. And we all know that if we're going to do well, survive in the league, then you would think that home games against the likes of, and this was all due respect, we're a team that was playing League One football 2 years ago, and they, as you say, are an established Premier League team. But we do need to start looking at these type of fixtures and trying to get full points from them, on the assumption that we may not have picked up too many from the first couple of games of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I should have said this as well straight off the bat. There are lots of caveats with this podcast. We are doing a lot of early hypothesizing. I know that makes some people uncomfortable, but at least some objective facts with what teams were doing last season that should play into this. And then I'm getting Craig and Joe's perspective from their learned eye. But we are just, as I say, figuring out the situation ahead of time. So August then, chaps, the Telegram group, we asked them for a points tally, and they went for 0 to 3 via a majority of 74%. Joe, what would be a good points tally, head and heart for you for August?
I think if you said to anyone you get 4 points in August, I think everyone would bite your hand off for that now, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
So I think you want to try and win one of the games, don't you? And you don't. The worst thing that can happen is if you lose all 3 of those going into that first international break, you're sitting bottom of the table, and really that's probably the most likely thing to happen when you look at it. We played Fulham in the League Cup last year, and their players just looked physically and athletically a million miles away from where ours were at the time. We had sort of Caden Jackson, Harry Clark playing, who are probably 2 of our most athletic players, and they just looked. All their players looked as athletic as those 2 did in our team, and there was a bit of a wake up call of how far off the level we were, and I think that was a rotated Fulham side. So yeah, it's going to be a tough start. But every month you look at it, it's tough. But yeah, if you get 4 points there, you are absolutely flying.
Yeah, Craig, higher than a 4? Higher than a 4?
No, my prediction was just 1 point lower than a 4, on the assumption that we'd pick up something from the Fulham game. But exactly echo what Joe said about it, and I think that will probably dictate and dominate our transfer dealings this summer, is increasing the level of power and strength and physicality throughout our team. Because, as Joe says rightly again, is that that Fulham, and then there were guys that playing for that Fulham team who barely played all season, but they were beating Caden Jackson in a sprint to the touchline without breaking too much sweat. So that what you will.
Yep. Some interesting memories from yesteryear coming in. James, remember the abandoned game at City in the was it the Premier League or was it the League Cup? The abandoned game, I think. There was 2 very
it was in the Championship or Division 1, because it was the week we beat Norwich 5-0 on a Saturday. It was a few days. There
was a Premier League one as well.
Oh no, actually we played. Oh, there was a Premier League one. And I think that was in the League Cup, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and we still won that anyway. And Matt, come on, Matt, Yeah, already looking at the pre-match show last time out. The 11-0 aggregate scoreline that Matt is bringing up there.
We did beat them the season before at Anfield, though.
We did, exactly right. And before that, Adam Tanner as well is in my mind too. So, Rodders. We giving ourselves 6 points there. We'll go with 4, I think there. But Jules reminding us. I mean, all of our hypothesizing optioneering is academic. 12 wins and we start up. Jules has done the maths, and we think there's a possibility of a win there at the end of August through the home game with Fulham, and we should be looking to win the games at home, shouldn't we? Moving on to September, not again another 3-game month, which just sounds bizarre, doesn't it? There will be a Carabao Cup tie in September, maybe August, won't there? In the midweek as well, but 2 away games on the trot there. Southampton, a team we know very well, obviously victory there via Amari Hutchinson's goal back in August, September time, wasn't it? And then a really tough game, kind of resurgent Aston Villa, Champions League, chased Aston Villa, of course. Joe, thoughts on Brighton, Southampton and Aston Villa?
Well, Brighton's got the sort of potential to be a bit of a grudge match, doesn't it, after their interest in Kieran McKenna this summer. So it'd be interesting to see Kieran McKenna against their new sort of 31-year-old manager that they've got from St. Pauli in Germany. Yeah, so that's going to be a tough game. Like I say, every game's hard. And then Southampton is one which we did beat them twice last year, and you really want to try, and that's the one you're going to have a big red circle around that game, isn't it? Because these are the games you want to be taking points off those teams around you. And then Villa, I guess the Champions League is probably started at this point, and they've all got the 8, or have they got the 8 or the 10 group games this year? I think they've got 8 this year, haven't they? So
yeah, it's weird. Yeah, reconfig, isn't it?
It's a sort of 32-game group. Yeah, so you have to hope maybe that you catch them after a long away trip on the sort of midweek before, and you're playing them there, and it gives you a bit of a chance. But again, they've got Unai Emery, who is a sort of a manager who's mastered European and league competition and sort of get through there. But admittedly more at the Europa League stage. But yeah, these are teams that are just, well, Aston Villa last year was superb all season and really, really deservedly in the Champions League.
Yeah, and Craig, obviously Villa is all of those teams I was kind of thinking last time we were in the Prem, we didn't beat Villa, did we? I think we lost in every single game, home and away, in the 2 seasons we had. And there was also the Hassan Kashlul debacle in the summer as well. But Villa obviously have been Championship quite recently. I think beat us, was it 4-0 in the last time we played 18-19, probably would have been at Portman Road. Your reflections on them as well, I guess, giving us comfort that Championship teams can consolidate. Obviously, probably in terms of stature, a much bigger club than us, more generally historically, but proving that if you spend money the right way, you can survive, can't you?
Yeah, you can, but obviously they started from a higher base than we'll be
did.
starting from in terms of the
Jack
floor.
Grealish. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, exactly, as Exhibit A. But Joe makes a good point about Champions League teams and UEFA Cup teams, Europa League, Europa Conference teams. If someone wants to go into a bit more detail as to the teams that are qualified for those particular competitions and our fixtures with those on the subsequent weekends, you could probably start to work out if any of those Saturday games will be moving to Sunday by default in any case. I've just got up the Champions League fixtures, and the first match is actually the week before we play Villa. So it's the Southampton, leading up to the Southampton games when the first Champions League matches are. So whoever has Villa that week will be playing them on the Sunday, and same for City, Arsenal, etc.
I think it's only the Thursday game, the Europa League and the Conference League games.
Oh, of course,
Sunday, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. No, well, yeah, absolutely.
But there's still maybe a perk there if you're not playing midweek, isn't there? So
yeah,
there is that aspect as well. Telegram chaps went with 4 to 6 points for this one by a majority of 76%. Brighton away, Southampton away, Villa at home. In terms of the difficulty for folk listening on the podcast, it's an amber, a green, a dark green for Southampton, and the red for Villa, who were excellent last season. What's your points tallies, Craig?
I've gone for a 5, actually. I don't see us losing this month. I've gone
for
2 draws and a win away at Southampton. So I think I've just got us picking up a bit of head of steam after that convincing win against Fulham last game in August. I was seeing us going on a bit of a roll and going unbeaten. What are we talking about? We're going to go unbeaten We're going to go unbeaten in September, not knowing what players we've signed and what players they've signed and things like that.
Yeah, Joe, higher than a 5?
I think you look at it and you'd be very, very happy with a 5. Probably very happy with a 4 again, wouldn't you? If you could do that all season, win, lose, draw, win, lose, draw, you're going to be in a very, very good position, aren't you?
Yeah, and as you say, don't have the 2 on the trot and keep the McKenna running. Jules quite rightly saying just need 10 signings now. Yeah, that was coming into my mind when I was seeing Mark Ashton earlier on. Let's move forward to October, shall we? Let me get the banner up here. So West Ham away, 2 trips to London in new stadiums for a lot of people, I'd imagine the majority, and Everton at home as well, kind of keeping this home run going as well, potentially. In terms of the difficulty that we've got with that, West Ham and Everton both kind of middling last season, obviously mid-table, but away West Ham actually pretty better than they were at home, I think, in the end. Everton kind of a bit middling at home. Brentford, not good home or away, really. Just outside the relegation zone, weren't they? Joe, have you been to the London Stadium or Brentford's new stadium yet? Is that one you've got your eye on?
I haven't been there for football. I've been there for the Olympics and the Paralympics. So not to watch an Ipswich game today. It's one I need to tick off. There's 4 grounds I need to do this weekend and this year, and one is on the same weekend as my son's 7th birthday, when I've got tickets at NFL the next day, or his 8th birthday, and the Brentford one at the end of the month is on my son's 6th birthday. So yeah, I've got some negotiations to do there. And they'll both want to come to the games with me, so it's just trying to hope the points get down to them. Yeah, so it's going to be a tough month for me, but generally I tend to get away with things.
There's plenty to do around the London Stadium as well. There's Westfield and all that very commercial stuff now as well. Craig, any particular memories of those opposition teams that we talked about there? West Ham, obviously, there's some real history in terms of the playoffs in the kind of noughties, isn't there? Brentford, I remember Boxing Day going temporarily top of the league at Brentford, but generally there was kind of crossing moments, seesaw moments where we were on our way kind of down, having not won in the playoffs under Mick, and Brentford were on a bit of a charge and have done really well to establish themselves, haven't they? But last season, not so great.
No, that's right. And you said about Villa being a championship team that's gone up and consolidated. You think that Brentford are
Brentford more of that ilk, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, they're more likely blueprint to try and follow. But again, as you guys rightly say, it will be about new stadiums for a lot of people, and I'm sure a lot of people have been to Upton Park, Griffin Park, and want to now visit it depends what rules and regulations of crossing off the 92 you follow, obviously. But I'm sure a lot of people will be going to these stadiums, and as Joe said, they've probably been to see the Foo Fighters or Pearl Jam over the summer. But yeah, exactly. But now want to go or the Broncos or whoever's been playing at the Tottenham Stadium, but now need to actually go and watch a game of football there.
Yeah. So we've got a points tally from someone. Ashley here. I'm thinking West Ham draw, Everton win, Brentford lose. So 4 points for Ashley. Telegram concur. 80% majority on 4 to 6 points, but likely 4 or 5. Joe, what's your points tally for October?
4 again. I'm just going to go 4 every month. It feels at the moment. I've gone from winning every game to getting 4 points from every 3 games at the moment. It seems, but yeah, 4. I think you got to try and win your home game and pick up, not lose both your aways, isn't it?
Yeah, Craig, higher than a 4.
No, I've gone exactly the same. No, I shall freeze before I get the same result as Joe.
Okay, good. Thank you. HCH asks, do we know how the away allocations will work? This did come up in our conversation with Mikey and Izzy a couple of weeks ago. You can still watch that. We are kind of Premier League teaching a little bit behind the scenes of the kind of the infrastructure and the way the league works, and certainly a media perspective from those two. And I think they were sort of saying that don't expect drastically bigger allocations this season. There'll be a few, United, for example, and maybe, Man City, but I don't think we should expect masses of allocations. Either of you got any insights that you want to share or reassurance you want to provide on this topic?
Well, you almost guaranteed 3,000 at every game, bar probably what Brentford and Bournemouth, aren't you? I think they're probably the only two that are under 30,000. Are they in there? I can't think of any more smaller stages. Maybe Crystal Palace just. So 3,000 is probably more than we were getting at most places last year. We're probably getting sort of 2 to 2.5. So I think it will be bigger allocations on the whole, and it's just those 2 games that are going to be tough to get tickets for. Really, Brentford and Bournemouth. Those 2 are going to be the ones where it is going to be like 11, 12, 1,300 tickets, where people are going to want more than that, aren't they?
Yep, indeed. Yeah, and hopefully no kind of Coventry nonsense that we saw back in April. I was watching that game the other day, by the way. That feels forever ago, April, doesn't it? And that Coventry win, Kiefer Moore. Moving on to the present and scaring the crap out of everyone. November, a fellow promoted team up first in the form of Leicester at Portman Road as well. Obviously did manage to beat them in the Championship, but that feels like essential. A trip to the new Tottenham Stadium as well for hopefully a lot of us. The return of Man United at home. Always seem to do well against Man United at home. I think there's a couple of defeats in there. Ruud van Nistelrooy cheating in the last time out, I think, but some good 90s victories. I remember Frank Yallop scoring against Tottenham and then against Man United in 2 consecutive games. So who's the new Frank Yallop, Craig? And then Forest away to finish that off. November looks, in terms of the kind of fixture difficulty kind of rating, November is pretty good. There are a couple of reds in the form of Tottenham and United, but a couple of greens in Leicester and Forest. Who wants to go first on this one? Craig, I'll come back to you.
My thoughts tally with the chart there, really, Rich, to be honest. As we said about Southampton, the teams that you're coming up with and will presumably be fighting the toss with in the bottom third of the table, shall we say. I've gone for us to beat Leicester. And the Tottenham one is probably the first, chance a lot of people have been able to get to that stage to watch a bit of football. So I'm sure that one's been marked in everyone's calendars. Manchester United just going to be it's going to be interesting to see how they evolve or don't really, and with another season of Ten Hag, isn't it? By this point in time, you'd have thought that they got their feet under the table and got things going, or not, as the case may be. So, I think there'll be an intriguing one to see at home, and for people of a certain age, they still are a big draw, aren't they? What will be interesting is I appreciate we'll probably sell out our away section for away fans at Portman Road. We'll set out that, but it'll be interesting to see what the intrigue is from away fans' perspective coming to Portman Road, because you would have thought there'll be a generation of their fans that have never been to Ipswich. Given they're
going to be very disappointed, aren't they? Where's the Beavertown Brewery? Come on, guys! Sort of sounds like.
The internal one. Yeah,
I mean, Joe, that Leicester game, it seems almost not defeatist, but a bit sad to be looking at that and feeling like that's a 6-pointer. But it probably is going to be, isn't it? It's vital that we figure out a way to beat them. Graham Potter being linked very strongly with their managerial job, which is probably quite a good recruitment for them. Off the back of October, I'm just checking back on October. Let me move the banner, sorry, 1 second, just so we can figure out what we're going into off the back of that. So Brentford away, and then into Leicester. 2 games in a row feels like, again, a situation where you want to get at least 4 points, isn't it?
Yeah, because we drew twice with Leicester last season, but you'd imagine that we will improve more from where we were than they will be able to, because they've obviously got huge financial issues. They already had a Premier League squad. They've got all the players that took the big pay cut to come down to the Championship have had their wages back inflated to Premier League money. So you'd think they'd have less room to manoeuvre financially in the market, where we hopefully will be able to get these 8, 9, 10 sort of players in, and some of those are going to be big money signings, some of those are going to be squad fillers, some of these are going to be loan players expecting to make a big difference. And you'd like to think that our level would be able to move us above them for where they are. Man United at home, it's going to be a massive game. It's going to be one that is big crowd. I know every game's going to have the same size crowd effectively next season, but it's going to be a pumped up crowd because Man United are still the biggest team in the world, aren't they? Or maybe with Real Madrid are coming down, and we're going to want to do to them what we did in the first home game under the lights when we went up last time, where we got a point against a much better Man United side than they are at the moment. They just come off the back and winning the treble at that point. You've got that there, and then it's the away game to Tottenham, which I think is noted in the comments. It's going to move to a Sunday because Spurs will be in Europa League action that weekend, and you never know what happens on the Sunday. And then Forest, we've got an awful record at the City Ground. I don't think I've ever seen us win there, and I've been there in probably 7 or 8 times. It's probably one of the grounds I've been to the most. I don't think I can't remember the last time we won. I think we've won there once in maybe the last 30 years, and it's not a team we haven't played very often either. So
we've got a Forest fan in the chat. Hello to Nick, giving us some clarity on the
he's looking
on
for
the allocations
points
there.
On the 30th of November, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, the last time I think I went there was the 3-3 in the 14-15 season, where I think I went to the last day of the season when they needed to win to stay up, which they did, and then did the pitch invasion. So again, weird how fortunes change from that situation. But yeah, not a great place for us to go away from home. Matt Holland winning goal 99 2000
96 97. I think it was earlier than that.
I think Matt Holland won in the promotion season, didn't he, Craig? You can be the third. I think he was ill.
Yeah,
it was live on Sky, I think, if I remember rightly.
No, I'm trying to think. I think I was there in the relegation season last time I was there. But
fun times. Let's move it on.
Nice place to go, though, Nottingham. Worst places to go for a night out.
Exactly right. A lovely place for a weekend trip, folks. So there you go. If you're looking for excuses for the diary there, head to the East Midlands. Craig, points tally for you?
I've got 5, actually. I've got the Leicester. As I said before, the Leicester we need to win, and then I've got a couple of draws stuck in there as well. Nothing away at Tottenham, but a couple of draws.
Yeah. Confirmation of the 0-1 Holland by a few people in 99. Joe, what was that? Sorry, I was pressing buttons, Craig. What was the number? Sorry.
5.
5, higher than a 5. Joe, higher than a 5.
I'll stick to my usual 4.
4. Yeah. Telegram went 4 to 6. So there's a lot of concurrence going on here. So that's all good. As long as we're seeing eye to eye, that's all we want. So into December, chunky month. It's almost Championship EFL-esque. You could see why Klopp and co were bitching about the schedule, weren't they? But a lot of amber for those listening on podcasts. So Palace at home, Bournemouth at home, 2 really #winnable games at home in a row. Wolves away is a light green as well. Not great home form from them last season. Newcastle's away form, not great. They come next, and then it's the London double of Arsenal and Chelsea after that. Joe, where do you want to start with that batch of fixtures? I mean, probably the first 3 looking, and the Forest again should be looking to get something from that. That's a good run of 4 games in a row, isn't it?
Yeah, that really feels a month, especially at Portman Road, where you've got Palace, Bournemouth, Newcastle, Chelsea. I know Newcastle and Chelsea are sort of top 7-8 teams, but Chelsea were a very funny team last year, very inconsistent. Ended the season well. We know they're going to have a new manager now, Enzo Maresca there. But we also know how he plays. We know that his sides aren't teams that blow you away. They might beat you and hold on to it. But Kieran McKenna managed to peg back his teams twice last year. So yeah, I think that's a real big opportunity that month with the 4 home games in it, and Wolves away, Arsenal away. Boxing Day will be difficult to get to on the train, and probably are one of our most likely defeats of the season because they are an excellent team. So yeah, but that is a month where And when you look at what's coming up in January and February, I think that is a month where you really, really need to get yourself above the relegation zone if you're going to have any hope of staying up.
Yeah, I mean, Newcastle is a team we've got some recent history with, Craig, in comparison, I guess, to Arsenal. Chelsea, there's been a couple of FA Cup ties, one not so bad, one horrible. Any memories or any situations there you're looking to, Bournemouth, there was a good promotion tussle, 14-15. There was always a little bit of needle, I thought, between Eddie Howe's and Mick McCarthy's teams, wasn't there? But it'll be a game that we'll be looking surely to win, won't we?
Yeah. I haven't got us losing at home in this month. Bournemouth,
Even to Chelsea.
No. So I've got struggling away, but doing okay at home. As Joe said, it's a month whereby just by virtue of the number of home games we've got in that section of the calendar, you've got to try and make hay as much as you can, haven't you? But no, as Joe Wright said, you'll get to the point where around Christmas where I think things will start hitting you hard. You've got teams like Arsenal and Chelsea twice in the space of 3 days. I think our squad may be stretched a little bit more than theirs.
Yeah, indeed. You probably focus on the home game, don't you? And Chelsea, I remember a game, a similar time of year, wasn't it? 2-2 draw under Ranieri just come in, hadn't he? They were playing Winston Bogard, I think, in defence. Scowcroft scored a couple, did he? I think maybe in that one. Arsenal away. Either of you go to the semi-final, the League Cup semi-final a few years ago?
Yeah. My boss gave me. I had Arsenal club tickets that day. Actually, my boss didn't fancy going to the match, unsurprisingly, so he gave me his tickets. But unfortunately, I was driving, so I couldn't make hay of the full range of
hashtag making hay is the slogan of tonight's pod, isn't it?
I was in amongst the 9,000 and had a good day before. It was very lively in the pub. One thing I remember is some guy trying to climb over the fence to get into the pub, and rather than stand on like the cant rail, stood on like the top of the board, just went down, fell, landed on his head, stood up, and it was like a bowling ball lump on his head. I think you need to go to. Everyone was like, I think you need to go to hospital. No, I'm all right. And it's just like concussion. It was honestly like the size of a fist by the time he stood up. It was unbelievable. But yeah, good times.
Drink responsibly, kids. So Telegram, 7 to 9 points predicted by 55% of the Telegram group. Joe, I'll come to you first this time around. As I said, those 2 home games at the start of the month, got pound signs in my eyes, as it were, for those 2. What do you think?
I think it's going to be a perfect 10. Not perfect, but 10 will feel like a perfect 10.
It will. I'd take that. Yeah, I mean, is that 2 points a game? Not quite. Just shy of that. Wow. Higher than a 10, Craig? No.
No. I still haven't got us losing these the 2 games in a row. So McKenna's still got his record intact going into the new year. But no, I've got a more conservative 6 out of those.
Wow, only 6.
Yeah, three draws and a win I've got there.
Who's your win coming against?
Bournemouth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Avenged the 14-15 season. Yeah, some really great stuff in the chat. Darren, reality is hit now, guys. Sorry, Darren, but better for it to hit now than in August, I suggest. And maybe hopefully there's some light at the end of the tunnel, some reassurance, some points in there. Just listen to Joe. Just towards the right hand side of the screen. That's where.
I also remember this time last year doing this with the Championship and thinking, God, look at that December. Middlesbrough, Coventry,
Sunderland's
Leeds,
a tough
Leicester,
game,
Norwich, and thinking, God, this is going to be so difficult this season, and we pissed it.
There you go. There's the clip for the podcast. So right there, Martin reminding us lovely history with Newcastle. I'm sure there'll be something around the Bobby Robson Foundation you expect for that. Also, didn't we shoot straight from the kickoff at Arsenal? We did. Grant Ledbetter, wasn't it? It's a shot straight from the halfway line there. Nearly scored. That would have been epic, wouldn't it? Blimey. Grant Ledbetter had scored that goal. I mean, even if we'd lost, we'd be talking about that now. Daniel confirming Boxing Day 2000 Chelsea, the 2-2 draw. Neil, wasn't Vilnius in the town end at Arsenal? Or did I dream it? I think you were right, Neil. I think that was definitely Flo's. Flo's. I don't know what I'm talking about. Is it my memory?
He fell off the barrier and got a big lump.
Has he got a big fist size Yeah, lump on his head. Drink responsibly, kids. And Daniel, a bit of synergy as well, as it was Chelsea followed by Arsenal in 2011 with the FA Cup and League Cup, hoping for better this time around.
Would you
Let's
take the
move it.
results though? 1 win, 1 defeat, let alone win 1-0, lose 8-0.
True. I mean, yeah, of course, there was the 2 legs against Arsenal. So you're right. Yeah, we did have the Tabas Priskin moment, of course, as well there. We are at a halfway stage, and I missed a comment from Chris. Here it is, rather neatly, the halfway point. 19 games played is New Year. If we can get to 18 points by then, we'll be well on our way to safety. He says it's 3.5 points every month. I mean, we're slightly above that line, aren't we? And we know that we like to just exceed Chris's expectations in his charts. So I think we're doing all right, Chris. We're repeating history, which is exactly as we like it. Let's go and have a look at January then. January window, obviously kicking off at that time as well. But we have the mirroring of the fixtures really from the start of the season, don't we, in respect of Man City and Liverpool at the end of the month. Man City at home, Liverpool away, and also Fulham and Brighton, who we have, I think, in quick succession at the start of in August, September as well, don't we? So maybe a more relaxed start for the month and then a hectic finish. Craig, do you want to pick up on January and give us your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I suppose it's get what you can out of the first 2 games of January, probably. Looking at it, again, I've got this is the month where I don't know if people want to guess which 2 games I think might knock Kieran McKenna's league defeats on the row record. I've got us winning the Brighton game, getting a draw actually, first game of the new year, but then not picking up too much in the subsequent 2. But again, this is a chance to get back to Anfield, a refurbished Anfield, a bigger Anfield than we saw last time. So I'm sure this is another one that's already been penciled into people's diary.
Yeah, and a 5-0 Joe there last time, but before that, two away wins in a row, 2 kind of cult classic Ipswich Town goals, isn't it? And Adam Tanner and Marcus Stewart, of course.
Yes, and if anyone can do anything at Anfield this year, if we can get a goal, I think we'll be pleased because their home form has been imperious for the last 3 years. But we never know where they're going to be. They've got a new manager that's come in and they might be having to take a big step back this year ahead of getting them settled in, trying to move forward and have the inconsistency of results. It's not a Jurgen Klopp Liverpool side, which has dominated Anfield. They are a totally new team. But yeah, this sort of from the middle of this month to the end of February is just absolute a horror show it could be.
It might still be fun though.
How was that optimism and positivity that you were just telling everyone to look to that side of the screen?
Paul in the chat, you 3 are ridiculously optimistic. I hope that's redressed the balance there for you, Paul. There, but
I'll make sure we beat Fulham and Brighton then at the start of the month to give us 6 points to be optimistic.
We have to be honest with Man City. I mean, Man City at home is, it's just we see it year after year on Sky, don't you? You just see them rock up, and even when they're bad, they'll just turn a team over 2-1 or 2-0 or something like that. And yeah, Liverpool away is going to be interesting, isn't it? There's always kind of a nice. I feel like we've got a reasonably. I mean, we need Dave here to kind of talk about the misery of everything before the 90s, don't we? Really, and every time we went to Anfield, we got beat basically. But I kind of feel like there was a League Cup tie in 02-03, wasn't there, where Tommy Miller scored at the Kop end and they needed penalties to beat us. There's always this hope there, is what we're saying. But Joe, your 4 points is probably fair in this one, is it? I mean, hopeful.
I'd be delighted with 4 points this month. I think it's another one you'd be happy with. Because when you look, there's 10 months to the season effectively. Some months you got 2, some months you got 6. But if you could get 4 points across every month, you're going to get 40 points and you're going to be safe. So if you could hit that target, but some months are more difficult than others, and I think this one goes in the category of more difficult than others. Brighton is a midweek game under the lights of Portman Road, and that's just one you really, really got to try and get a win in. It's going to be very, very difficult, but it's just what you want, isn't it?
So did I strong arm you into 4 points, Joe, or are you going for it?
I'll take the 4.
Yeah, Craig,
or 3. I'll take.
Shake your hands, not get on the bus, all that jazz.
I've gone more than Joe actually, so you can point everyone towards the middle of the screen for the positivity in January, and obviously our tactical defeat to Maidstone in the 3rd round of the FA Cup just to help us out towards the tail end of the season as well.
If you thought imagine losing to Maidstone this coming season. We thought the attention for the media was enough for this season, for the season just being. Imagine a Premier League team losing non-league. So I hope that we show up at least and don't go out in that way. But it might be nice to get a win under our belt as well to build some momentum as well. The cup is sometimes handy. Often a distraction though, so we'll see how we feel. I'm going back to the chat. I love this. Martin, January loan signing Kylian Mbappe boosts our top 4 push. He's going there as long as he's got his nose sorted out. But bringing us back to reality, Reading Tractor, will Sam be suspended for the start of January? I mean, blimey, he might.
He may well have reached at least 5 yellows by January, should we say?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to VAR. I really hope someone asks him. Andy Warren, if you're out there, ask Sam Morsey about VAR. Ashley not feeling good. He can only see 2 points for that month. Horsler, I was in the cop with my Scouser mates for the Adam Tanner win. Awkward. And Wolfie will have Salah in his pocket, predicts or states Trevor. So we shall see. Martin, I'll take Mbappe even without the nose. So yeah, January window will be interesting to see how much business we do, if we need to do any. It does feel like, I mean, very quickly on this, I know you guys did a kind of transfer squad assessment kind of show. Was it last weekend or weekend before? It was 2 weeks ago. You can still watch that and get the guys' take. I guess, Joe, I'll come to you on this one. Were you kind of hoping for a bit of business to have been announced by now, or are you still quite chilled and calm?
I think there's sort of an artificial deadline in there now, isn't it, of June the 30th, where teams need to get business done for their financial fair play and their PSR rules. So I think at that point is when hopefully a couple will be in the door ahead of that, because I think pre-season starts on the 1st of July as well. Yeah. So it'd be really, really good if we can have 2, 3, 4, however many in by that date, so they're here for the start of pre-season. Because we saw, for example, last year, Amari Hutchinson came in right at the very start of pre-season. He was here. He went away to Austria with us twice. He looked, so we watched the games out there, and he looked like a player that had a long way to go with his decision making, but he learned so much in that time. And when you look at the signings that came later on loan, even like a Dane Scarlett, who just didn't get settled in, didn't get a chance. Even Jeremy Sarmiento, he popped up with big contributions. It really took him until he'd had that 2-week training break ahead of the Coventry game before he really looked switched on to what we were doing and being able to put in a sort of more solid performance. Yeah, so you just want to get your targets across the line early. So we play a very sort of complicated game model, and I don't think it's going to be getting any simpler over this season. Just want to get them into squad, get them up to speed, get them doing what we want them to do.
Yeah. Craig, we've got fixtures this week. Is next week contract renewals, and then the week after, I guess it's pre-season fixtures and maybe kits announcement starts in July. Is that your sense of the kind of news cycle? Because you need some stuff. We need stuff to talk about, and it needs to kind of be drip fed. But I'm surprised we haven't heard more about contract information, particularly for Hladky at this point.
Yeah, that is. I suppose
he's away though, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. He's on telly over in the Czech Republic, I think. So no, I suppose that's the main one. And Joe and I spoke about it on the transfer pod. Is the timescales and the reasoning and the thought process behind any transfer renewals, in that, do you reward people now for the job that they've done on the assumption that they'll be going on ahead to carry on doing it? Probably Leif Davis, you'd like to. But other than that, is it a suck it and see scenario whereby you see how many of these guys can handle life in the Premier League before you start throwing around elongated, extended, inflated contracts? But just a quick one in terms of the transfer business, or the rumours. Sorry, what you have noticed in the last day or two is that it looks like our feelers are being put a little bit wider throughout the continent, shall we say, and the level of detail that's being reported on from those overseas journalists and overseas press releases is there's too much smoke without there being a little bit of fire underneath it, if you know what I mean. There's an awful lot of detail about the terms that are being offered and the deal structure and things like that for it to be made up by somebody. So it does look like we are trying to get things done, but how much of these are going to be agent talk and trying to use a Premier League tax to inflate the value of these guys, I don't know. But things are happening. I think even Mark Ashton said he was in the city yesterday or the day before or the weekend chatting to a couple of agents. So yeah, as you sort of pointed to earlier, Rich, I think Mark Ashton's probably champing at the bit to get some.
Thought you were going to swear there.
I can do if you wish.
Get your shit together. Come on, let's go.
Yeah, it's what he does and it's what he enjoys doing. So I can't imagine. There's only so many blueprints of new tannoy systems and dugout expansion and things you can look at before you start getting down to the sexy stuff.
Let's do some, exactly. Let's spend some agent fees. Spot on. Whilst we've a little bit of pause, we'll resume February and March in a second. If you want to continue the debate on transfers like Joe and Craig and many others do, I can recommend our Telegram group. I try and stay out of that as much as I can in terms of the transfer chat, but everything else is very much interesting. Really, great engaged community there. Lost a lot of chat today, not a huge amount of work getting done as always on our Telegram group. Blue Monday itfc.co.uk is the link there. There's a link to join the Telegram group where you can also find a link to our merch store. The new branded Blue Monday merch stuff is out, but there is a promo on Friday. So get yourself some new Blue Monday branded merch from Friday. I think it's 25% off. So that's pretty good going. So keep a lookout for there. NordVPN VPN promo, as Mikey said earlier, is still active as well. Get yourself a NordVPN subscription and support the podcast in the process. That's the gist of it. And as we said, Mikey and Dave did their reaction. Oh, you're waxing yourself, Joe. What's that noise? Ripping some sellotape. If you want to watch back, Mikey and Dave's immediate reaction, kind of the deer in the headlights of Dave when Mikey went, "It's Liverpool and Man City, mate." Head back over to our YouTube channel or podcast feed, and that's 25 minutes. So nice and brief, good chat there. Nice precursor to this show. So give that a look as well. And Sunday, we'll have something on Sunday. One way or the other, something will happen on Sunday. Hopefully down our podcast feed and it'll be positive, but keep a look out there. Socials, Telegram, we'll keep you posted. So good. I've done all the businessy stuff. Let's head to February then, guys. The cold of February. We're out of the woods on the window. We've kept all of our big players. We've signed a couple of decent £10 million strikers, and facing up to them will be Southampton at the start of the month, guys, and with two Reds in Aston Villa and Tottenham followed after that, and Man United away, who frankly, let's call it, are a red anyway. They just had a really crap home form last season. February, the latter end of, is pretty fearsome, isn't it, Craig? And let's stick in some hope through March, where we have an amber away at Palace and a light green at home to Forest. But wow, that February doesn't look fun, does it, after Southampton?
No, exactly that, after Southampton. And again, without wishing to labour the point, I've got us down for almost a must. It's a must-win 6-pointer at this point of the season. And yeah, try and get that win on the board early, because there doesn't seem to be too many points flying around towards the middle tail end of the month. But as you say, again, Manchester United, we don't know how they'll be performing by then. They could have a brand new manager. Who knows going to be in the dugout. But yeah, this is another one where I've got us picking up a solid 5. I've got us getting a point away at Man U and a point at home to Tottenham. Not a lot away.
McKenna goes back to Old Trafford and steals a point.
Exactly,
Joe. It wasn't too long ago that Jeremy Sarmiento was creating havoc at home to against Southampton at Portman Road. That would do again, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that would be amazing. And I think a few people put it in the comments that it is this month is Southampton is that game, like I mentioned earlier, at the season, because you play the teams in roughly the same order, where you've got a big red circle around that as game we must get something from, because you look at the 5 games surrounding it, it's Man City, Liverpool, Villa, Tottenham, Man United are the 5 surrounding that game. If you don't win that game, you're going to be effectively 6 games without a win. And it's really, really difficult to bounce back from runs like that. And it's not just 6 games without a win, it's like 6 weeks without a win, because there's no Man United's a midweek game, but there's just no games to get yourself back into. It's not like the Championship where you've got all these 3 games weeks packed in there, and you lose a couple, you've got another game on a Tuesday to try and get yourself back. You lose a game, and all of a sudden you haven't won a game for ages, and the pressure builds, and the talk, and the social media, and everything's magnified 1,000%. So yeah, massive game.
The last relegation season, Joe, 01-02, there was a real surge of momentum once we went out of the UEFA Cup, didn't we? Around November, end of November, December through to January, and even I think into February, where we'd been bottom, and I think we were bottom at Christmas, but then got maybe around this, February, March time up to 14th. But it really doesn't take much for that momentum to shift, does it? And I just wonder, 22 years away, obviously the corporate collective memory at the club, I think the fan base, we remember these moments very vividly. The Liverpool 6-0 and Chris Marsden dancing around our defence, making the look like peak Messi. Momentum was obviously a critical factor in our promotion, but February time, Joe, you're right. There is a big swing that could take a little bit of writing, couldn't it? And that run of games looks really tough, doesn't it? Draws our friend at this point.
Yeah, especially when you think in the last 2 seasons, January and February have been times where we just have struggled as a team. We haven't had good runs across them, even when we've been a 98 and 96 point team. Those 2 months have been real down months where we've gone effectively a point per game for those 2 months when we're flying. So you just have to hope that if things are going bad, and they probably will at this point, if they are, that McKenna, Morsey, the guys that have been through it twice before, will be able to say, look, we know we are a team that gets hot again as soon as the sort of clocks go forward. Effectively, we start flying again, and we just need to keep it from there. But we know this squad, this management team, this staff know how to manage a run-in, know how to manage a team, know how to focus next one game at a time. Don't think too far ahead. Don't worry about this. We're very, very good at that, and it's going to be a real test of that this year, because we haven't lost back-to-back games across this 2 seasons where we've needed to find a way. We've always managed to bounce back, and there's going to be times this year where we don't bounce back straight away, and we're going to need to find a way to do it.
Yeah, no, I guess, Craig, 2 thoughts. I'll come to you on March in a second as well. We'll just finish that stretch off with March before we get to April, where it gets more red. But Saturday, Tuesday is obviously a very common feature of the EFL season, and actually sometimes you want that Tuesday night game, to come straight away off the back of a bad performance to get it out of your system. It's not a luxury that we're going to get too often. We've obviously talked about Man United being a Tuesday game. There's a couple in there. A friend Chris Rand in the chat has mentioned a couple of them. But your thoughts on, I guess we won't know at this point, but Saturday, Tuesday being a feature of our season that we don't really have anymore. That extra week or few days on the training ground, might that be make up for it? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it will, and it sort of goes along the point that Martin's made in the chat there about McKenna very rarely, if ever, going several games without picking up points of some description or another. And to Joe's point, you would hope that those extra days on the training field will play right into Kieran McKenna's hands in terms of being able to get us fully up to speed and drilled in time for the following weekend's game. So I don't see it being a handicap at all. I think it's going to be a positive for us just to have those extra days on the training ground for everyone.
Very quickly, guys, I didn't ask this. Telegram's got 4 to 6 points. There's a 60% majority there for February. I'm not sensing the same level of optimism from you guys for February. Joe, do you want to give me your points tally on the month?
I take 3 that month. I think 3 would be a good return. 4, I'd bite your hand off for.
Craig?
Yeah, I concur. I've gone for that same bracket. I've gone for the Southampton game as a win, but they don't pick up another one for another month and a half.
Right. I'm gonna just swap you guys around, because I did say I'll come to Craig on this one. So apologies, Joe. I'm gonna hide you behind the graphic there, but we've gone from red, amber, green before we get to April. Craig, Palace away will be a interesting weekend in the Penty Smith household, won't it? And Forest at home. Off the back of those 3 games in a row, where you'd be surprised if we get maybe more than 1 or 2 points. March is where you've got to kind of make up for it, because it doesn't get any easier in April.
No, but as you say, Palace away is not an easy game now. As they carry on in a sort of momentum from the tail end of this season into next. But then we don't know which players they may or may not lose between now and then. But I think that's going to be quite a difficult one. Forest at home, I've got down as being one of my in and around you in the bottom third 6 pointers. So I've got us down to win that one. First one since Southampton back at the beginning of February.
Yeah, wow. Joe, 1 winner of the games in March. There's a international break, isn't there? Which is why There's only a couple of games, but
and there's an FA Cup 5th round
sure.
in there as well. But yeah, no, again, if you can win one of those two, you're happy with that, aren't you? Crystal Palace finished the season excellently. Their record at Selhurst Park has been very good. They're always a tough team to beat there. But then a lot of the times you see them as tough to beat when they're playing the big games. So is it that the crowd get really up for the big games there, the Liverpools and Man United, when they go there, maybe when Ipswich turn up, the Homesdale fanatics aren't as up for the games against sort of an Ipswich side as they would be there. So maybe that atmosphere that gives them an edge isn't as severe as it could be. But yeah, it's going to be, yet again, every game's hard, isn't it? You look at it and you look at the gap between the relegated sides and the sides that stayed up last year, and it's sort of 10 points, wasn't it, from sort of 17th to 18th. And it's such a huge leap to get in there that you look at these that I know it's all cliches, the sort of no easy games, bloody blah, but it is the case, isn't it? That the levels we're going to have to meet are just so high. You look at the managers in the dugouts, and you look at Palace, and they've got Glasner, who's come in from doing brilliantly in Germany, winning the Europa League, or losing the final of the Europa League, and he's gone in there and has got them absolutely flying straight away. And they've got Elise, who they're going to sell for 60, 70 million, and Adam Wharton, Eberici Eze, all these guys in the England squad. Mark Gay's was really good for England on Sunday night. And then you look at Forest, and they've got Nuno Santo and Morgan Gibbs-White that they signed for 30 million quid. And it's just, the levels are so high, and you just can't, any win you can get is great. Like I say, if you can get a win out of those two games, you're fantastic.
Because there is the colour coding kind of lets me down a little bit. Man United away is not an amber fixture, is it? But Palace away is maybe an amber fixture, light green for Forest, and then there's 2 in a row, Bournemouth and Wolves, before you get a really tricky end to April. But that run of 4 games, Craig, I mean, if we took those as a batch, what would your points tally be?
Good question. My points would be actually 6 out of those 4. I haven't got us losing any of those. I've got us a win at Forest and drawing all the others, to be honest.
Yeah, do you agree with that, Joe? Stick that back on the screen.
Yeah, that sounds about right, doesn't it? Yeah, and it's they're the sort of points levels we're going to need to get, aren't they? If we're going to have any chance of staying in contention, you've got to find 9-10 wins from somewhere.
It kind of, April, Joe, has always been, this is the kind of critical month now, because it's only one more game in the EFL season in May after this, but the Premier League has got 4 fixtures in May. So us ending the month of April with Chelsea away, Arsenal at home, and Newcastle away, maybe isn't as daunting a prospect as it might be if it was a comparable set of fixtures in the EFL. Am I barking up the wrong tree on that? I mean, there is games still to play, and as we'll find out in a second, May is a little bit more generous, isn't it?
No, I think you're correct. And when you looked at when we were relegated last year, we had that ominous ending to the season. We knew, I think, was that our last game? Was it Man United at home,
United, Arsenal
away
in there as well. Ambrose,
yeah. I think the last 4 games we had Arsenal, Man United, and Liverpool in there, and it was always that if we're not in a good position by then, we're really going to struggle. And it got to that stage, we weren't in a good position, and it's like, God, we're going to have to beat Man United at home, or we're going to have to beat Liverpool at Anfield, and I just don't see how we're going to do that. And this year, if this was the last month of the season, and you knew you had to go to Stamford Bridge, you've got Arsenal at home and Newcastle away. If you knew that was your last 3 games, it puts so much pressure on those before it, because really that's quite easily a 0 pointer there, isn't it? So hopefully, yeah, you get your points against Bournemouth and Wolves, and those 3, anything you get from that is a bonus.
Yeah, Chris saying Bournemouth away, another weekday. He's saying Easter is late April, no bank holiday games, just normal weekend stuff. So again, if you're planning your diary on the basis of this podcast, I mean, what are you doing? But there you go. There's some insight to help you with that. Apologies for knocking the microphone there. So yeah, I mean, I know we did a bit of batching there, but for the run of April, guys, I got 4 to 6 points from Telegram. Let's go split the difference and go for 5. Either of you guys exceeding 5 points for April?
No. I would take 4. I'd be delighted with 4.
Maybe it is 4. I mean, it's only 60%, so it's not a big majority. But Craig, 4.
No, I've only got us picking up a couple of points in April, saving ourselves for a big May. As you say, it's going to be looking ahead, getting what you can out of April, and looking to pick up as many as you can in May.
Well, as NSYNC sang after April, it's going to be May. We're away at Everton. No, any excuse to crowbar a bit of NSYNC in there as well. At least I didn't sing it. At least I didn't go as far as doing a Ben Bloom. Who's doing a live stream, by the way, later on if you want to watch that for Portugal, Czechia. Everton away, one of the last few games at Goodison Park. Brentford at home, Leicester away. Need some Sarmiento magic there. And then West Ham ending the season at home as well. I haven't got particularly fond memories of playing West Ham at home, chaps. Craig, give us your assessment of that. Do you want me to put up the difficulty rating for this? One's a bit big, but lots of green there and only an amber for West Ham.
Yeah, that's an interesting point actually made there about Goodison. It being presumably it'll be the penultimate ever game at Goodison Park.
We've got Everton Richo's in the chat. Evening Blue Monday podcast. He says last opponents to play at Goodison Park are Southampton. He says,
yeah, they must have us the 2 weeks after us then. So yeah, that'll be everyone's last chance to get to Everton if people haven't been there before. And again, I've got picking up our last win of the season at home to Brentford, albeit not our last point of the season at home.
You're going for a last day draw. Will it be enough? I guess we will find out in May, won't we? I don't know where I'm going with that one. 7 to 9 points, Joe, is predicted by Telegram. As Mr. Positivity on the podcast, are you going as high as, I mean, probably it isn't 9 points, but do you know what I mean? Like, it's more than 4 this time around. Are you concurring with that?
It's going to be tough, but I think if you could have handpicked your last 4 games of the season, I think you wouldn't have gone too far away from what we've got there. Like West Ham are probably going to be safely marooned in mid-table at the end. Brentford will hope to be, but if they're not, they're a side that will be up against, and Leicester away.
Just don't
lose. A side that's come up with us, and it's great to be one of the last games at Everton, but I think it would have been a real disaster being the very last game at Goodison, because had we swapped fixtures with Southampton, there's no way that Everton and their fans would have accepted losing their last game there to a newly promoted side. So I think it's good. I think it will help if we can beat them at Goodison there. That will mean that they are more determined to beat Southampton as well. So both things could work in our favour. But yeah, I think that's like, there's no easy months, but when you compare that to, if you were to put all months in order of difficulty, this is probably one of the ones where you can look at those fixtures at the end there and think, if we're level on points with, if we're 17th going into May, you'd back us to keep our heads above water at that point, which I think is all you can ask for. We don't want to be saying bye to the Premier League. So.
Nice. Yeah, I'll do the dance move for that one. And Everton away, Craig, some happy memories. A Matt Holland Thunder bastard free kick almost. Not quite a Thunder Bee, but and Marcus Stewart dribbling around Paul Gerrard. John McGreal headed goal from a free kick at the start of our 2000-2001 campaign. It's a place we've got some history on. That's positive, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Dave will probably tell you about Kevin Beattie raising above crossbars and winning headers.
Romeo Zondervan scored a good goal.
Romeo Zondervan, yes, we must always mention Romeo Zondervan. So yeah, absolutely. It's going to just be a good occasion, as Joe rightly says. That's a very, very good point about them not particularly wanting to allow their last ever game there to be a loss. So we may have lucked out in that respect. Leicester away could be an interesting one as well, can it? In terms of where everyone's situated, that could end up being an absolutely vital game. Who knows where that will lie? But in terms of our last 2 home games, without any disrespect to either of those teams, you'd rather be playing Brentford and West Ham at home rather than the first 2 home games, Liverpool and Fulham at home, I think.
So in the chat, give us your full season points prediction. It's not scientific. I'm not going to write them down and come back and check your work in at the end of the year. Just a bit of fun. But Craig and Joe, give me your May predictions and then your total season points predictions.
I've got 5 in May.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll go 7 in May.
Whoa!
But then when you say what is my total points prediction, I've just winged it tonight. I haven't actually written these down. So
that's all right.
No one go back and check that what I've said adds up to this, because if it does, it's an absolute miracle. Because
two different questions, Joe. Different answers for different needs. It's fine.
I think we're going to be okay this year. I think we're going to get 43, 44 points, somewhere in that range, and be above I wouldn't say not in a relegation fight, but we're going to be far enough away from that. We're not going to be looking over our shoulder because I've got that much faith in Kieran McKenna and what he's going to do with us this season.
Craig?
Yep. My calculations are 43, and if that's incorrect, you can blame Bill Gates's auto sum function on Excel. So I've got us around about 43, and as Joe said, hopefully that'll be enough to see us 2 or 3 positions above the relegation places.
I've got 40 in my predictions. I didn't do those as I went along because we didn't have enough time. But it does feel like May is kind of the month that we need to, properly grab the bull by the horns or whatever it is. And, the guys in Telegram, we asked them their predictions. The majority, 35%, went for 41 to 45 points, which chimes with your guys' expectations there, 29%, 36 to 40. So there's not a feeling of a kind of Derby-esque struggle. 6% of our Telegram group, or at least 6% who voted, said top 2. So, anything's possible at this stage, I suspect. But it does feel like that 41 to 45 points mark is where we want to be aiming. Any thoughts from the chat? Get them to us quickly because we're about to say goodbye. Just a reminder, go and watch the reaction from 9 a.m., 25 minutes worth. Always good to hear from Mikey, but always great to hear from Dave as well. So you get his perspective on the situation as well. Back here on Sunday as well for the flagship show. Hopefully we'll let you know what's going on there and the usual stuff. NordVPN, Telegram, new merch, promo on Friday. Check it out. And as always, like and subscribe if you're here on YouTube. We appreciate that. And if you're listening on your podcast app of choice, 5-star rating, always appreciated. We've obviously exceeded the time because everyone's off and watching the Euros. So no points predictions in the chat. No one wanted to put their head above the parapet. We have got mentions of points deductions and VAR. It'll be a crazy season. Join us here for the Blue Monday for the journey. We'll be here throughout giving you our take on things. We want to get you involved in the discussion as well. So do subscribe. Do join us for the pre-match and the flagship show either side of the matches, and plenty more exciting stuff to come throughout the summer as well. MW, God bless you. 45 points he's gone for. I feel like that is the level of positivity we want to end on. Joe, thank you. We'll see you soon. Craig, thank you. We'll see you soon too. And enjoy the rest of your week, folk. We will see you too soon too.